I am making an update for my Thunder Dragon deck profile after the new ban list, which pretty much all the new ban list did for Thunder Dragon was put Colossus back to 3, which I personally like, but that's just because I actually enjoy playing Thunder Dragons. But my favorite version of Thunder Dragon to play at the moment is actually playing it with despia monsters. Just because you can fuse them really easy. Anyway, starting off with the monsters, I play 3 copies of Despian Tragedy. Tragedy has the effect that when it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, or when it's sent to the graveyard or banished by a card effect, you can then add a Despia monster from your deck to your hand. And then it also has a grave effect where you can banish it to add, or can't remember if it's add or set a branded normal spell from your graveyard. Let's see. Use banish it, set to your field, but you can only use one of those 2 effects per turn and only once that turn. So if you search with a Despia, you can't set a branded spell or trap from your graveyard, or vice versa. And then next, I play 3 copies of Tri-Brigade Mercarrier. This monster's only purpose in this deck is to be banished, so that you can add one of your 2 copies of Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous. Honestly, I'll probably end up cutting Blazing Cartesia to 1, just because it is searchable with the Mercarriers. And if I do, then I'll toss in the 1 copy of Foolish Burial, so you can dump the Tragedy to then be able to add one of your 3 copies of Alibur the Jester Despia. But Blazing Cartesia is a free summon Fallen Valabaz in the graveyard. That's not in this deck, so it's always going to be a normal summon. But Blazing Cartesia has the on-field effect during the main phase to quick effect fusion summon a level 8 or higher fusion monster, which you do not have to use Blazing Cartesia. Never had that come up until one of my friends decided to use Ghost Ogre on Cartesia. And then next, I play 3 copies of Alibur. One other thing I should probably mention about Cartesia is that she does have a grave effect, where during the end phase, if a fusion monster is in your graveyard because it was sent there this turn, it can be returned to your hand. And then Alibur has the effect that when summoned, let's see if I can just get these a bit better. There we go. Alibur has the effect that when normal or special summoned, you can add a branded spell or trap from your deck to your hand. And then, if a fusion monster leaves the field while its card's in your graveyard, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls, special summon this card from the graveyard, and if you do, negate that monster's effects till the end of the turn. And you can only use 1 of those 2 effects of Alibur, the Jester or Despia, once per turn. And only once per turn, so if you use a search, you can't use the grave effect, or if you use the grave effect, you can't use the search. Next, I play 3 copies of Thunder Dragon. You can discard it to add up to 2 Thunder Dragons from your deck to your hand. Which, one thing I like to do with this deck is, if Thunder Dragon is the only Thunder Dragon monster I've seen, I'll have Alibur add the field spell, and then use the field spell after I've discarded Thunder Dragon to add 2 more, to fuse the 2 Thunder Dragons into a Colossus. Then the next, I play 3 copies of Thunder Dragon Dark. All the Thunder Dragons from this point in the main deck have the effect where they have 2 effects. One that activates when they're discarded, or one that activates by discarding them, my bad. And then another one that triggers when they are sent from field to grave or banished. And then Thunder Dragon Dark, the other thing with their 2 effects is that you can only use 1 of those 2 per turn. So Dark can discard itself as a quick effect to add another Dark from your deck to your hand. And then Dark can also summon add a Thunder Dragon card when it's banished or sent to your graveyard. And then I play 3 Hawk. Hawk can discard itself to summon a Thunder Dragon monster that is in your graveyard or banished. And then, if it is banished or sent to the graveyard, you can take any number of cards from your hand, shuffle them into the deck, and draw the same number of cards. Then I play 3 copies of Roar. Roar has the effect that you can discard it to add a Thunder Dragon card that's banished on your graveyard to your hand. And then its other effect allows you to summon a Thunder Dragon monster from the deck. Then to round out the Despia monsters, I play one copy of Dramaturge of Despia and one Ad Libitum of Despia. Both Ad Libitum and Dramaturge have effects that activate when they are sent to the graveyard or banished as fusion material, where Dramaturge will summon itself, and then Ad Libitum will target one Despia or level 8 or higher fusion monster that is not Ad Libitum to then summon that targeted monster. And then Dramaturge has another effect where if a monster leaves the extra deck, then you can target one monster on your opponent's field, negates effects till the end of the turn. And then Ad Libitum has an effect that I've never seen anyone use ever, where once per turn you can activate Ad Libitum's effect to make all monsters on the field gain 100 attack times their level until the end of your opponent's next turn. I think that's a reason why hardly anyone ever uses Ad Libitum's effect on field. But that is it for the monsters. Moving on to the spells, I play one copy of Despia, Theater of the Branded. This card is a once per turn polymerization. And then if a fairy non-fusion monster is sent from your field to the graveyard, then you can target a level 8 or higher fusion monster in your graveyard and special summon it. And then next I play one copy of Gold Sarcophagus. This is just used so you can banish one of your 3 main monsters to banish, being Mercarier, Tragedy, or Roar. Banishing any one of those 3 will give you something that you would be able to use, whereas Roar will give you a Thunder Dragon monster on field. Tragedy will then let you add a Despia monster, and then Mercarier will allow you to add Blazing Cartesia. And I'll get to why Blazing Cartesia is in the deck shortly. Yeah, but you banish a monster from your deck, and then after your second standby phase, after its activation, that banished monster is added to your hand. Normally you won't get that far. Then I play 2 copies of Branded in Red. Branded in Red has the effect where you can target a Despia, or I believe Fallen Val. Yeah, if Despia or Fallen Valbaz in your graveyard, add it to your hand. And then it has the optional effect of being able to banish from your hand or field to then fusion summon a level 8 or higher fusion monster. Then I play 2 copies of Thunder Dragon Fusion. Thunder Dragon Fusion lets you recycle monsters from your field, grave, and banish back to the deck to fusion summon a Thunder Fusion monster. And then it has a second effect that can only be used once per turn, except for the turn it was sent to the graveyard, where you can banish it to then add a Thunder Dragon monster from your deck to your hand. And then next, I play 3 copies of Allure Darkness. Allure Darkness lets you draw 2 cards and then you banish a dark monster from your hand, but if you can't banish a dark monster, then you send your entire hand to the graveyard. Like I said before, the 4 best monsters to use with this are going to be Mercarier, Tragedy, Roar, and then Dark to some extent, since Dark will let you add a Thunder Dragon card. And then I also play 3 copies of Duality. Duality lets you tribute 1 light or dark monster from your field, to then special summon from your deck or extra deck 1 monster that has the same level and type but opposite attribute. So if you tribute a level 8 light spellcaster, you can then special summon a level 8 dark spellcaster. And then Duality also has the great effect if you can banish it to then take a light and dark monster. I can't remember if it's in your grave or banish, shuffle them into the deck, and then you can draw 1 card. Let's see. Okay, you target a light and dark in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck. And then you can only use each effect of Duality once per turn. Next, I play 3 copies of Branded Opening. Branded Opening has the effect that you can discard a card, and if you do, special summon a Despia or Fallen Valbaz from your deck in defense position. You can only and its other effect is If a fusion monster or monsters you control be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. And you can only use each effect at branded opening once per turn. And then lastly, for the traps, I play 3 copies of Branded Banishment. Branded Banishment lets you target a level 8 or higher fusion monster or a despia in your graveyard, special summon it, and then you have the optional effect of banishing from either side of the field to fusion summon. And that is it for the main deck. Like I said, the only change I can think of that I'd want to do with this at the moment is drop Blazing Cartesia to 1, just so I can play the one more copy of Foolish Burial, just because it's technically another starter. Moving on to the extra deck, I play 3 copies of Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. Some of my friends still hate me for playing 3 of this, but this monster saved me a lot when Mystic Mine was legal, so I'm going to love this monster as long as this monster is legal. But Masquerade the Blazing Dragon has the effect that while this fusion summoned monster is on the field, notice the fusion summoned, then whenever your opponent activates a card or effect, they have to pay 600 life points first. Which is really bad when your opponent's trying to use cards that they have to activate, and then they have to use the effect on field, because then they have to pay 12 instead of 6. And the other thing with that effect is that it does stack for each Masquerade. So if you have 2 Masquerades in play, your opponent has to pay 12. If you have 3, they have to pay 18. And Masquerade also has the grave effect that if your opponent controls a fusion, synchro, Xyz, ritual, pendulum, or link, make sure I got that right. Let's see, ritual, fusion, synchro, Xyz, or link monster. Then you can special summon this card from your graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. And then for a duality target for Masquerade the Blazing Dragon, I also play Despian Quertus. Quertus has the main phase effect, or main phase quick effect, to reduce the attack of all monsters on the field to 0, except for level 8 or higher fusion monsters. Quertus also has the effect that when this card in your possession leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can then special summon a Fallen of Albaz or Despia monster from your deck. I don't think it has to be in a specific position. Make sure I got this right. Yep, and you can only use each effect of Despian Quertus once per turn. Then I play 1 copy of Grand Gwynol the Dust Dragon. The only purpose this card has in this deck, honestly, is that it's a level 8 light spellcaster for duality. I wonder what the level 8 dark spellcaster could be. But yeah, no, it's the 1 copy of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. You can summon this with duality by using the Grand Gwynol the Dust Dragon, which requires Blazing Cartesia and then a light or dark monster. Good thing I have a bunch of Despia monsters for dark and Thunder Dragons for light and dark. But Dragoon has the effect that when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can discard a card to negate that card, and if you do destroy it, then if it was destroyed, Dragoon then gains 1,000 attack points. And then Dragoon also has the effect where it cannot be targeted or destroyed by opponent's card, or can't remember if it's by opponent's card effects or by card effects. I want to say it's opponents. Nope, it's neither. So neither player can target or destroy it with card effects. It also has a burn effect, but that effect only applies if you made it using normal monsters. And then next, I play 3 copies of Thunder Dragon Colossus. Colossus has the effect that if it would be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can banish a Thunder monster from your graveyard instead. And then you can it must either be fusion summoned or special summoned by banishing a Thunder monster you control during the turn you've activated the effect of a Thunder monster in your hand. And then Colossus also has the effect that I had it banned for the longest time, that your opponent cannot add cards from their deck to their hand except by drawing them, I believe during the draw phase. Let's see. Okay. Cards cannot be added from your opponent's main deck to their hand except by drawing them. So, unless they're using something like Pot of Extravagance, where they get to draw 2 cards, they can't just activate something like Tuning to add a card from deck to hand. And then next, I play 2 copies of Guardian Chimera. Guardian Chimera has the effect that when it's fusion summoned, then you can you can destroy cards on your opponent's field for each monster on your field that you use to summon it. Destroy them, and then you can draw 1 card for every monster in your hand that was used for its summoning. And its summoning requirement is 3 monsters with different names, with at least 1 on the field and 1 in your hand. And then it also has the effect where it cannot be targeted by card effects, while Polymerization is in your graveyard, which Polymerization is not in this deck, so Guardian Chimera will be able to be targeted. Next, I play 3 copies of Thunder Dragon Titan. Thunder Dragon Titan has the effect that if your opponent activates a card effect, if you activate the effect of a Thunder monster in your hand, then Titan can activate in response to then be able to destroy 1 card on the field. That is not a once per turn effect. It is not a once per chain effect. So if you can keep activating the effects of Thunder monsters in your hand, Titan will be able to just keep responding to that and then destroy a card. And then Titan also has the effect that if it would be destroyed by a card effect, then you can banish 2 cards from your graveyard instead. And then Titan can also either has to be fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing a Thunder fusion monster and then banishing a Thunder dragon from your hand. And then lastly for the extra deck, I play 1 copy of Despian Proskinian. Proskinian is one of my favorite Despian monsters, just because of back when everyone and their mother was playing Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. This was my answer to Phoenix Enforcer. Just bait my opponent into using Phoenix Enforcer's effect, then I'll summon Proskinian and activate its effect, which lets you target a fusion, synchro, Xyz, or link in your opponent's graveyard, and either banish it or summon it to your field. So I would give myself the Phoenix Enforcer. And then I would just fuse it off later, and then my opponent would be upset that they can't activate its effect because it was fused off and not destroyed. And then Proskinian has one other effect where when it destroys a monster in battle, your opponent takes damage equal to his attack or defense, whichever is higher. And that is it for my Despian Thunder Dragon deck profile. If you have any ideas what I can do to improve the deck, and ideas for decks like see me made in the future, I'm currently working on a Chaos Thunder Dragon deck. Or decks like to see face each other, comment down below. I always read the comments. Thank you for watching.